Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guest with your host, Christina Nitchman. Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest today is JJ Murphy. JJ has been eating wild food since she could walk. Growing up in a family farm in Connecticut gave her plenty of opportunities to forage yards, gardens, and woods. After earning a master's degree in broadcast journalism from the University of Kansas, she moved to New York City and discovered urban foraging. Her articles have appeared in such publications as Wildlife Magazine, Outdoor Unlimited, and Spores Illustrated. Today, JJ joins us to share her new book, Joyful Foraging, a step-by-step guide for anyone who wants to eat healthier, fresher, and more flavorful foods while trimming grocery costs by 30% or more. Find out more about JJ at thejoyfulforager.com. Hi, JJ Murphy. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. I'm so glad you can join us today. You have a very interesting story. You are a forager. You help people go out there and forage, and you're going to share about what all that means, how you got into doing it, and you also have a new book that came out, The Joyful Forager, correct?
It's called Joyful Foraging, Learn to Feast on the food that is growing all around you. Awesome. And the website is thejoyfulforager.com, and that's where you find the ebook. Yes.
Yes. So tell everyone a little bit about what foraging is all about and how you came to doing it.
Okay. Well, foraging, as I define it, is looking at the plants that are growing all around you and getting to know the ones that are edible, and when they grow and how they grow. And the 10 plants that are featured in my ebook are plants that grow worldwide, that have nothing else that looks like them. They're very easy to get to know, and that taste delicious, and that you can't harm the environment by harvesting them. In fact, in some cases, you're helping the environment by harvesting them.
Wow, that's good to know. So in essence, people listening in who might be in some cities, big cities saying, hey, like New York City, they might say, well, where would I possibly find the edible plant? Well, you say you actually live in New York City, so you can forage healthy and edible plants in New York, correct?
I do, absolutely. And when you think about it, in New York City, you are walking to school, to an appointment, you're walking your dog, you're taking a walk because it's a beautiful day. And if you look around in flower boxes and in small gardens and in the pedestrian and greenways that have been created recently, you will see many green plants growing. Among those green plants are the plants that I feature, many of them, in my ebook, because those plants have learned to grow anywhere.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, are some of the plants, because I'm thinking some people are going to be like, I'm not really trusting myself to go out there and forage. I might just pick something up and poison myself. What would you say to them?
I would say that you are very unlikely to do that because you already have the tools you need to determine if something is not good. If it smells bad, or it tastes bad, or it feels icky, you are not going to eat it. And it's the same as if, you know, when you go pour your morning coffee and you go to pour the milk in, and maybe it was fine when you bought it, but now it smells a little funny and it's gurgling. You know not to eat that. It's the same with the wild plants. The plants that I'm featuring will not poison you, and the reason I have made the choices I have made is that you can't get them mixed up with anything else. Now, the plant world's pretty big, and there are some plants that do have lookalikes, but these are just absolutely perfect for the beginning forager. I happen to have a couple of them, as you know, just before this started. I went out foraging and seeing anything else about clean. And this is, all I'm doing is taking a folding scissors and trimming the tender tops. This first plant here is lamb's quarters. And you can see that funny shape of the leaf where it's wide at the base and it tapers down to the tip. Mm-hmm. This is the bottom side. It's a little hairy and a little light colored. There's the top side of the leaf right there. Mm-hmm. And they call it goose foot because it's shaped like a goose's foot. There's not too many plants with a leaf shaped like that. Mm. If you have any doubt about this plant, I'm not sure I'd recognize this plant, take a trip to your local farmer's market. Mm-hmm. And the plant that they are selling is wild spinach for $16 a pound. Wow. Is that plant that I just picked for free.
Wow, that is crazy. That is crazy expensive. To think that people are spending $16.99 when they can go out in their local garden or right outside their driveway and pick it up. Now, I like what you mentioned about really paying attention and knowing your instincts, because I've heard from a number of my friends who've gotten food poisoning over the year that they would go to a restaurant and get some food that tasted a little funky, but they thought, nah, it's got to be fine. I got it at the restaurant. And they got dreadfully ill. So I think it's awesome that you're out there teaching people to trust their instincts, to get to know the plant world better, and to forage a little bit on their own so that we can learn to trust ourselves, our instincts, and eat more healthily. Because I'm sure, as you might have noticed, a lot of the foods in the grocery store are a lot of preservatives. And you mentioned earlier before our interview that a lot of the ingredients you can't even read.
Exactly. And I think that we have been very fortunate to live at a time where convenience is expected. But I think in reality, because things are, it's not as simple as it used to be. You know, you want the food to look good in the store, so you add a preservative, and the packaging looks pretty, but you get it home and it kind of doesn't taste as good. Distribution, you know, we want watermelon in January. Well, it doesn't grow here in January. So that watermelon had to travel. Yeah. And then somebody had to pick it out of the field and put it on a plane and ship it over here. And somebody had to take it off and put it in a warehouse. And someone had to take it, put it on the shelf, and 15 other people poked at it before you know, I mean, when you think about it, I personally would rather harvest something local in season, be the only person who has handled it, because now the texture is firmer and the flavor is fresher. I'm picking these things up and showing them to you, but I'll have them for dinner tonight. You know, they haven't traveled very far from field to table, and they did an interview. You know,
they were featured in an interview. It was a scary thing, JJ. I heard that some apples that we find in our grocery store are several months old by the time we actually pick them up and take them home. So it is a scary prospect that you're thinking, hey, these are fresh produce, and actually they're not so fresh sometimes.
And again, I think part of 20th and 21st century living got us moving at a very fast pace. And we forget that time and slowing down has a value. And I think that, you know, again, we expect things out of season. And so in order to get an apple, you know, in February, well, that apple was ripe in September, and somebody had to keep it stored all through the winter so that we can have a fresh apple in February. Whereas if we thought about it, you know, maybe you eat your apples in September, you know. And again, I wanna, you know, sort of mention that in addition to finding the plant in its right season and the right part of the plant in its right season, dehydrating food in many cases is a very foolproof way to preserve the food so you have it out of season. And it's really ideal for city living, because I can take something that I find, wild berries, for example. Now think about how much space a pint of berries takes up. And I could put those in my dehydrator and put them in a mason jar. And I could put several pounds of berries, several packages of berries in the space that a jar takes up, and have it on my shelf. and still have that berry to use, not in fresh form, but at least I'd get the flavor of it, and I can add it to my compotes or whatever I'm making in the wintertime. And you can do that with some of your wild greens too. You can, I happen to have a deep freeze. Not everybody has the space for one, but you know, I really love dehydrating because you can keep those things more than a year without them getting moldy if you dry them in a dehydrator. And again, they're the fresh picked fruits and vegetables that you harvested that you can keep, and that it's really ideal for limited space. If you're living in a limited space, this is a great way to save your food that was picked in its right season that you want to eat in the off season.
So I heard you mention there that, you know, we are now in this fast-paced world eating fruits and vegetables and foods that are not in season. Is that really not the best way for humans to eat? Is it better that we only eat what's in season for our bodies, or have you?
I guess, you know, again, for me, it's a matter of I like something that is freshly picked, that's at the time. You know, a lot of what you find in the stores, it looks, you know, fresh picked, but it was picked before it was ripe. It didn't really ripen right in transport. It looks fine in the store. It's pretty, it's shiny, it's all that. But from the time it was picked until the time you get it, several days have gone by. It's lost crispness. It's lost flavor. It's just, and it's been handled, so it's been bruised from being moved around. Whereas for me, when I go out foraging, I know when that plant or vegetable is ready to pick, and I pick it. Again, I trim the tender tops, let the plant grow new, fresh growth. It's just producing continuously in season. And then I can take it home and I can have it fresh, or I can cook it, or I can pickle it, or I can do a number. I can make main dishes, side dishes. I can do all kinds of creative things with it. And the flavor and the texture are peak. It's gourmet quality, and all it cost me was a few minutes of time.
Wow. Yeah. So is it hard for someone who's a beginning forager to learn all this, or does it take a period of time before you would say they're safe to start really foraging and eating?
Well, I think, again, it's a matter, we all have different learning styles. For me, if I see it and I touch it and I smell it and I draw a picture of it, I begin to get to know it. For someone else, maybe you want to try it, you know, because you tried it at the farmer's market. I tried in this ebook to be very, very clear in the plants that I chose. Nothing else looks like these plants. Here's another one. It's called purslane. See that bright red stem? Find a plant in your garden that has a bright red stem like that. You won't. And look at those leaves. See how they're shaped like little paddles, and they're kind of shiny on this side, and kind of, you know, there's one dull side and one shiny side, and they're kind of thick and shiny and succulent. Nothing else looks like this, and it grows kind of horizontally like this. It doesn't grow tall, and it grows. Right now we're having a drought. It grows very vigorously in drought. I have made pesto out of it. I have made steamed greens out of it. High in omega-3s, delicious, delicious, delicious. And you're not harming the environment by picking it. It's not an endangered, you know, it's native to India. Some people think it has kind of a sweet taste, and some people think it has kind of a sour taste. And it has, I try to compare it to okra in terms of the thickness, that kind of juicy succulence that you find in those. And both the plants I just showed you, if you find them growing in your garden, if you find them growing in your neighbor's garden, if you find them growing in the greenway, if you find them growing in a window box or around a tree pit, they're fine. And they won't hurt other plants. There are, however, one of the first plants I mention in my ebook is called garlic mustard, because I start my plant thinking in the spring. Well, you know how the snow isn't quite melted and we're all jonesing for something green?
Yeah.
Well, garlic mustard and field garlic are the first two plants that come up, and they're the only green things growing.
Wow.
And you can eat them because
Mm.
there's nothing else to mix them up with. It's a little harder at this time of year.
They're invasive plants, correct? You had mentioned invasive plants before?
Yes. Now, invasive plants are plants that once they get established, they don't let anything else grow.
Mm.
And so garlic mustard is one of those plants. This is what it looks like at this time of year.
Mm.
And every one of those little black dots that you see there is a garlic mustard seed.
Mm.
Now, I walked out to just the edge of my driveway, picked up two plants with tops like this. They were probably 2-3 feet tall. And this is how much seeds I got out of them.
Wow.
5 minutes work.
And that is an actual seasoning that you can use in your food.
This is your garlic mustard seed that would go in your spice jar. That you know, those spice jars that are $5-6 a jar in the store. That's, like I said, 5 minutes work. This is the garlic mustard root that you would powder, and that's your mustard powder. Again, that would go in your, now this, you know, would be a little bit of work to dry it out and grind it into powder.
Yeah.
This was shake it and all the seeds come out, and I put, you know, a piece of paper down on the table, so, and all the shake, and then make a cone and kind of pour them into the, now, again, it's been so very dry. This is sun-dried, naturally dried. I didn't even have to put them in, I didn't have to do any work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's food, it's there.
Yeah.
And the same way that you would use mustard seed in a recipe, you'd use that mustard seed. That's a bad boy. That plant, when I harvest that plant, I go out with a paper bag, put a paper bag over the top where the seeds are, and snap it off so that no seeds spread. And even if you didn't eat that plant, if you went out and did that, you'd be doing the environment a big favor.
Yeah, because they kind of push out other plants and they can't grow, and they become ace because they just take over the whole area.
Right, exactly. And while they're delicious to eat, there's other things that are delicious to eat too, and we don't want those to disappear from the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and so this is like, to me, I'm always foraging, because when I walk around, I'm always looking for what's growing, what's in season, and how am I going to prepare it? Am I going to eat it now? Am I going to save it for later?
So that, with that in mind, for anyone listening in, you can forage even in the city all year round. You just have to know what to look for.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you'd also mentioned it doesn't take a huge amount of time. Like you mentioned this morning, you went out and you didn't spend a huge amount of time just picking up those few little items in your driveway.
Right. And I think what I'm hoping to do is change our awareness of healthy eating by changing our understanding of what's food. You know, the farmer and the gardener call it a weed because they didn't put it in the earth and it's growing where they don't want it to grow. But it's healthy, it's delicious, it's flavorful, it's free, and it's there. And the only thing keeping you from adding it to your pantry or your refrigerator is a lack of knowledge. You know, and the ebook was written in a way that allows you to upload it to your smartphone or your tablet, take it with you on your walk, and you can look and compare what I've got in the photograph to what you see. And then from there, the next step is remembering where you saw it. Now you incorporate that into your walking routine, and you start looking like that garlic mustard. You know, it looks real different in the spring than it does now, but I know it in all seasons. And I know when I see it that I'm always going to remove the entire plant because I want the other plants to grow. And I know my lamb's quarters and my purslane and my chickweed and other plants to just take just a scissors as a small knife and just trim the tender tops and leave it to grow, because it won't push the other plants around.
Yeah. This is really great hearing this, JJ, because a number of years ago we had Sandy happen here, the big flood over, you might recall. And I remember my friend who lived by far walk away and by Sandy Sandy area. What was it? Breezy Point. And a number of them were saying all the grocery stores and most of Manhattan even were empty. And so you go in there and you're like, I have no food. But knowing what you know, this knowledge empowers you to realize that, hey, there's a whole bunch of food growing all around you. You don't have to starve.
Exactly. And I think beyond that, it's not just food like survival food, it's delicious food. It's better than what you're finding in the restaurants. And, you know, like you said earlier, we can't always rely on the people who are preparing and providing our food to know what they're doing. So we really are responsible in the end for our own choices. And this is really an invitation to embrace something that's out there. There's enough for everybody. It's not like you're going to pick the garlic mustard and no one else will get it. You know, it's like, it's not hard, and because it's feeding you, it's nourishing you, it's helping the environment. New York is a funny place. And I would love nothing better for people to start contacting their policymakers and saying, you know, those parks that we use and we enjoy, instead of poisoning the invasives, allow, even if you set up a foraging schedule, you know, from this date to this date, take all the garlic mustard, take the lamb's quarters, take the mugwort. Mugwort is another plant. I just don't happen to have a sample of it in my hand, but it's in Joyful Foraging, and it has a smell and aroma like sage. It's fabulous as a meat rub, you know. And in fact, one of the things that I love to do, what I call my recipe revamps. Give me a recipe, one that you like, and I will revamp it with foraged ingredients. Same flavor profile, and I can do one that will save you easily 30% on your food budget.
And we talked about that earlier, that a lot of what you find in the grocery store are made with preservatives. You don't know a lot of the ingredients that are in it. This way you have control over knowing that how you're feeding your family, how you're feeding yourself. And as you mentioned, it's cheaper. Now, how much cheaper is it? Are you just saving on the plants and goods, or is it really the produce you're saving most on?
Well, I think it's, well, for example, I did a recipe not too long ago. It was a grass-fed beef with a sage rub. It was a spinach salad with a balsamic vinaigrette, string beans, and roasted Yukon Gold potatoes. That was the recipe. For all of the ingredients that you needed to make that, I think the whole thing came to like $45. Well, I took that grass-fed beef. You can't substitute that because it's a whole other set of category of foraging. But instead of the sage, I used mugwort. All right. So depending upon whether you bought the sage fresh or in the jar, you save on that. The spinach, I substituted the lamb's quarters. Well, you know, again, at $4 a bunch or whatever, my lamb's quarters were free. And the balsamic vinegar, well, took that and substituted apple cider vinegar, which is not only healthier and cheaper, but it integrates into that whole recipe a little better. So we saved some money there. And then I did, instead of string beans, Asiatic dayflower. That's another one of the plants in my ebook. It has the stems and leaves taste like string beans. So now you didn't have to spend for the string beans. And instead of the Yukon Gold potatoes, I used Jerusalem artichokes. And you can dig those. All right, that's digging. You might get your fingernails dirty, but they're free. And they're abundant. And that recipe revamp went from $45 to $31.
Wow.
Just substituting the wild ingredients for the purchased. And you know, it
sounds a lot healthier too. Now, the balsamic vinegar, is that not known as being as good as the apple cider vinegar?
The nice thing about the apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar is expensive for many people, and the apple cider vinegar is an aid in digestion. And when I substituted it out, not only did I was changing a flavor profile there, but Jerusalem artichokes for some people are hard to digest, and the apple cider vinegar answers that question. So
interesting. And you had mentioned earlier, you don't need a lot of tools to head on out there today once they get your book and start foraging, just a couple of items just to get you going.
Well, I'll tell you that the toolkit, you can download the toolkit for free. And the toolkit is folding scissors and a tote bag. And I like my roll of wax paper. I take a sheet of wax paper, a square, I tear it off. Mm-hmm. I take my gathered plants and I put them in the wax paper and I fold it up, twist the ends like a party favor, toss them in my tote bag, and they don't crush while I'm gathering the rest of my foraged items. Mm-hmm. So that I like a headlamp because lighting isn't always the way I want it to be. I like a magnifying glass because I like to look close. Mm-hmm. You can use your camera phone, your smartphone, a digital camera, a notebook or pen, however you like to study the details of the plant. This is all right around your house. And I think of all the items that I mentioned, the headlamp might be the most expensive at $20 or something. This is all stuff lighter than a gym bag, you know, it's all stuff you have. The other thing that I have on my website that I hope people would find helpful, it doesn't matter, urban, suburban, rural environment. My quick start guide is there for free. Tells you what kinds of places to look, where to look, you know, border areas along the driveway, partial shade, full sun, what you'll find, where you'll find it. And just get into the habit of, you know, if you're already walking, if you're taking your dog for a walk, you're already out there walking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you have to walk your dog anyway, here's a good way to make more use of it.
Right. And this is a wonderful activity for kids because kids stop and look at everything.
Yeah.
So it's a great way if you're taking your children out for a walk to the you know, to a play date or to the playground, stop along the way and look at the shapes and the colors and, you know, take pictures, draw pictures, take a sample of the plant and press it in a book if you happen to carry a book and take it home and study it. You know, there's lots of ways. I think of it like, you know, if you went to a party, if I invited you to a party right now and you didn't know anybody, right? It's a room full of people. They're all strangers.
Yeah.
But spend a few minutes there and you're going to start noticing this person's a little taller. That person talks with an accent. This one has an interesting walk when they walk across the room. That person is, you know, whatever. That person has a funny story, or that person, you know, is sitting when everyone else is standing. You'll notice things about individuals. What's the same thing with the plants? You know, gee, that one grows long and skinny like a blade of grass. Gee, that one grows horizontal along the ground. You'll look and you'll see distinctions, and it'll stick in your mind.
Yeah. So in essence, it's kind of like going to a networking party, but a plant networking party where you get to move and groove and get to know the plant world a little bit better and become acquainted with it. And it's like everything else. It takes you stepping out, being a little uncomfortable and getting into that world. And soon you won't be uncomfortable. Just like when you go to a party and you start talking to people, you get uncomfortable as you get comfortable as you get to know the people.
Exactly. And the other thing, I think we talked a little earlier about this business of being in a rush and the fast pace. Well, I like to think of my plant walks as 15-minute meditations. You know,
that's good.
I turn off my cell phone, I turn off my computer, and I give myself that couple of minutes to spend, even if I'm not picking the plant that day, just noticing the aroma of the plant or the texture. How does it feel on my fingertips? If I do put it to my face or my lips or my tongue, is it fuzzy? Is it smooth? You know, it's none of this is dangerous. It's just a new way of looking at the world around you, and a way, I think, of taking back some power and decision making in your food choices. You know, and for me, I don't like going to the supermarket. It's stressful. You're jockeying your shopping carts or your shopping basket, and you're, you know, waiting for that person to move away so that you can, you know, find the freshest of whatever you're standing online, and then you get to the checkout and it's much more money than you thought. And then you've got to haul it home and unpack it. And, for me, the foraging walks are, I'm walking anyway. I notice this. I take out my little scissors. I trim it. I put it in my bag. I move on. And I get home and I have ingredients that really all I need to do when I forage that way is take out the little plant mister, spray them, put them in the salad spinner, or the ones that are a little more delicate, I might just blot them in a towel, and they're ready. You're not struggling. And it was fun while you did it, and then you can turn the cell phone on and deal with the things that and not everything that happens, at least in my life, that happens on the cell phone or the internet is all that critical.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for mentioning that.
Some things can wait. And I think we all have 15 minutes a day. We may have to, it may be the first 15 minutes of the day. I like sunrise and sunset because that's, but maybe noonday sun is your time, know. I like, going out in a light misty rain because it feels good.
Yeah.
Maybe you need, a few minutes and something like the beach. And there are plants that grow at the beach. I mean, there's all environments and all opportunities. And I think it's about the eating, it's about the saving money, but it's also about, for me, saving our sanity because of the pressure we're all under to produce all the time.
I love that you're mentioning that, JJ, because our life is on super fast paced all the time, and it leaves us stressed. Stress is one of the biggest killers in humans, I hear. And so here you're not only empowering yourself, you're giving yourself time to meditate, become one with nature again, and really understand it, not feel like it's against you, and feel that you have options. So I want to let everyone know where they can get your book, Joyful Foraging, Learn How to Feast on the Food Growing All Around You. And your website again is thejoyfulforager.com, correct?
Correct. Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, I've been so happy having you out here, JJ. Thank you again for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
It has been my pleasure, and I just wish you all joyful foraging.
Winty is an aviation-themed t-shirt business designing and printing aviation-related graphics for pilots, aviation businesses, and aviation enthusiasts worldwide. Winty can print 1 or 100 garments upon request within a reasonably low turnaround time, including a one-stop shop solution for all your graphic art needs, from logos, business cards, book covers, and banners. Contact winty.com today in order to find out how your design could become a reality.